My name is Emily, and this all started the night of my sister's rehearsal dinner. The room smelled like roasted chicken and garlic bread. Glasses clinked, and people laughed. I sat at the long table, proud of myself for helping with so much of the wedding. I had taken off work to pick up flowers, to meet the caterer, and to help with the dress fittings. My credit card was still warm from all the deposits I had already covered. Then, out of nowhere, my sister's fiancé, Mark, stood up with his wine glass. His face was red from drinking, and his smile was too wide. "We all know weddings are expensive," he said loudly. "Family is supposed to help out. But some people think they can show up for free." The laughter died down. Everyone turned their heads. My fork froze halfway to my mouth. I already knew where this was going. He looked right at me. "Emily, maybe if you can't pay your share, you shouldn't even be here tomorrow." The words hit me like a punch. The room went silent, except for the clinking of the ice in my glass. I tried to speak. But I already paid. Before I could finish, my sister, Lily, leaned in. She wore her white rehearsal dress like she was already the queen. She said in a sweet but sharp voice, "Emily, no one is counting the little things you did. Mark and I need real support, not excuses." My chest burned. Little things? I had paid the $1,000 deposit for the florist. I had covered the $600 down payment for the caterer. I had swiped my card for the dress fitting when Lily forgot her wallet. None of it was little. I looked at my mom for help. She stared at her plate like the green beans were suddenly fascinating. My dad cleared his throat but said nothing. I swallowed my anger. If I said too much, they'd twist it. So I stayed quiet and finished my meal with shaking hands. That night, I drove home with my stomach in knots. I replayed every word in my head. Freeloader. Doesn't help. Doesn't belong. When I got to my apartment, I sat on the couch and opened my laptop. I pulled up my email, searching for the vendor confirmations. I wanted to remind myself I wasn't crazy. There they were. Florist invoice, $1,000 paid from my account. Catering contract, $600 deposit charged to my card. Dress fitting, $200 swiped on my Visa. I scrolled further, clicking on attachments I hadn't noticed before. My heart stopped. One contract was for the venue. But something was wrong. My name was on it, not Lily's, not Mark's. My name. And at the bottom, a signature that looked like mine but wasn't. It wasn't even close. I grabbed another document. Same thing. My name listed as responsible party. My forged signature slanted awkwardly across the page. I checked the totals. $5,000. $10,000. My breath came fast. They had signed my name for thousands in charges. I leaned back on the couch, dizzy. It all clicked now. The sudden accusation. The way my sister dismissed everything I had paid. The reason Mark made that scene. They had set me up. They wanted me to look guilty, so I wouldn't question why my name was on their contracts. My hands shook as I printed every email, every receipt, every forged contract. Soon a stack of papers lay on my table like a weapon. For weeks, they had been smiling in my face while writing my name on bills. They weren't just ungrateful, they were stealing from me. I thought about calling the vendors right away. I thought about calling the police. I thought about storming back into the rehearsal dinner with papers in hand. But then I thought about the wedding. Tomorrow. Hundreds of guests. Fancy flowers. Speeches. A perfect picture they wanted to show the world. And me? The sister who was supposed to sit quietly and keep paying. I stared at the stack of papers until midnight, my jaw tight. I wasn't sure how I'd play this yet. Would I blow everything up in front of everyone tomorrow? Or wait until later and pull the rug out from under them when they least expected it? Either way, one thing was certain. They had chosen the wrong sister to mess with. What would you do if your own sister forged your name on wedding bills? Would you expose her at the ceremony or wait until afterward to strike? Tell me in the comments, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss more sweet revenge stories. I barely slept that night. My head was pounding with everything I had discovered. My sister and her fiancé had forged my name, dumped wedding bills on me, and then called me a freeloader in front of the whole family. I woke up at 6 a.m. on the day of the wedding. The sun was just rising, but I was already at my desk with a mug of coffee and a pile of papers. I looked at every contract again, reading the fine print slowly. My name. My fake signature. Thousands of dollars in charges. I decided then and there I would not be their doormat. The first call I made was to the florist. The woman answered cheerfully, asking if I was excited about the big day. Actually, I said, keeping my voice calm, I need to talk about the contract on file. The one under my name. That signature isn't mine. I want it removed immediately. There was a pause. Wait, are you saying your sister and her fiancé signed your name? Yes. And I have proof. The florist sighed. You're not the first person to tell me something like this. Don't worry. I'll switch the account over to them. But they'll need to pay the balance today. I smiled for the first time in days. Perfect. Next, I called the caterer. Same story. The man on the phone pulled up the records. Your card was charged for the deposit, he said. Yes. And I didn't authorize that. I want the rest of the contract moved to Lily and Mark. He clicked his keyboard. All right. The balance is $4,200. I'll need their payment today or there won't be food tonight. I thanked him and hung up. One by one, I called every vendor, the DJ, the venue, even the dress boutique. I explained the fraud. I sent scanned copies of the forged contracts. And every single one agreed to remove me and transfer responsibility back to the couple. By 10 a.m., I was free. My credit cards were safe. My name was clear. When I arrived at the wedding, the venue looked like a fairy tale. White roses covered the arch, candles flickered on every table. Guests smiled, snapping photos. But behind the beauty, there was panic. I saw Mark pacing near the DJ booth, his phone pressed to his ear. His face was red, and sweat soaked through his tuxedo shirt. Declined, he shouted into the phone. Run it again. No, I don't have another card. I slipped into a seat quietly, pretending not to notice. A few minutes later, the DJ walked over to me. He leaned down and whispered, "Hey, your card on file isn't working. Can you give me a different one?" I looked him straight in the eye. That's not my bill anymore. You'll need to ask the groom. The DJ frowned, nodded, and walked away. Moments later, I heard him telling Mark the same thing. Mark's face turned purple with rage. He spun around, searching the room, until his eyes landed on me. He stormed over, his fists clenched. "What did you do?" he hissed. I smiled sweetly. "I made sure every contract is in your name where it belongs. Congratulations, husband-to-be." "You ruined us," he snapped. I tilted my head. "No. I just stopped you from ruining me." The whispers started spreading through the crowd. Aunts leaned into uncles. Cousins texted under the table. Everyone could sense the tension. Lily finally walked over, her veil shaking as she gritted her teeth. "Emily, how could you do this? You're embarrassing us on our wedding day." I lifted my phone and tapped the screen. "Funny, because I have emails, receipts, and contracts that say you embarrassed yourself." She froze, her face pale. The ceremony still happened. They said their vows. People clapped. Photos were taken. But the magic was gone. Behind every smile, I could see worry. At the reception, the caterer pulled Mark aside. I heard the words clearly, "We need the balance before we serve." Mark stammered. He looked around the room, then at me. But I just raised my glass of water and took a slow sip. No one brought me food that night. But I didn't care. Watching their perfect day crumble was a feast in itself. By the end of the night, the whispers had grown into open questions. Did Emily really pay for everything? Did they forge her name? What's going on with the bills? My parents stayed quiet, pretending nothing was wrong. But I saw the shame in their eyes. I slipped out before dessert, holding my stack of papers close. I had cut every string they tried to tie around my neck. But I knew this wasn't over. Because when people like Lily and Mark are exposed, they don't apologize. They don't thank you for catching them. They try to twist the story. They try to make you the villain. And I was ready for it. Would you have canceled the vendors before the wedding like I did, or let them all demand payment during the reception? Which would you choose? Tell me in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more sweet revenge stories. 3 days passed after the wedding, and the storm I expected finally arrived. It started with a text from my Aunt Carol. "We're having a family dinner this weekend. Everyone will be there. We need to talk about your behavior." My behavior. Not Lily's. Not Mark's. Mine. I stared at the text, my stomach twisting. They wanted to corner me. They wanted to shame me in front of everyone until I gave in. It was the same tactic they had used all my life. Pile on the pressure until Emily folds. But not this time. I gathered every receipt into a binder. I made copies of the contracts, highlighted the forged signatures, and slipped them into plastic sleeves. I even added screenshots of my bank statements showing the deposits I had paid. By Saturday evening, the binder was heavy in my bag as I drove to Aunt Carol's house. Her house smelled like pot roast when I walked in. The living room buzzed with voices. Every chair was taken, and folding chairs lined the walls. Cousins, uncles, grandparents, everyone was there. It felt less like dinner and more like a trial. As soon as I stepped inside, the conversations died. All eyes turned to me. "There she is," Aunt Carol said, her lips pressed tight. "Emily, sit down. We need to clear the air." I sat at the far end of the table, my bag at my feet. My mom and dad sat in the middle, side by side, not looking at me. Lily and Mark sat across from me, holding hands like a team about to play a championship game. Aunt Carol started. "Emily, your sister tells me you made a scene at the wedding. You embarrassed her and Mark on their special day. You refused to pay for things you promised. Is that true?" I felt my jaw tighten. "No, that's not true." Lily leaned forward. Her voice was soft, but every word was aimed like a dart. "Emily, you said you'd help. You agreed to pay your part. Then you pulled out at the last minute. Do you know how humiliating it was to have vendors chasing us during the reception?" Mark added, "We looked like fools because of you. Family supports family. But you left us hanging." Murmurs rose around the table. My Aunt Sarah shook her head. My cousin Tom muttered, "That's cold." I waited. I let them pile on. I let them build their case. And then, when the room was full of judgment and disapproval, I reached down, unzipped my bag, and placed the binder on the table. "I didn't come here to argue," I said, my voice steady. "I came here with proof." The room went quiet. I opened the binder to the first page. A florist invoice, with my name and my card number. I paid this deposit. $1,000. Out of my account. I turned the page. The caterer's invoice. I paid this too. $600. Look at the card number. Page after page. Dress fitting. DJ. Decorations. Each receipt highlighted, each line clear. The murmurs changed. Instead of judgment, there was confusion. People leaned forward to see better. My mom frowned, her hand gripping the tablecloth. Then I flipped to the next section. The forged contracts. "This," I said, holding up a plastic sleeve, "is the venue contract. My name is on it. But that is not my signature." Gasps went around the room. I laid out another. And another. Each one with my forged name. Each one with thousands of dollars attached. I looked straight at Lily. "Do you deny this?" Her face went pale. Her mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Mark, who shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Finally, Mark said, "So what? You're her sister. You were supposed to help anyway." I laughed bitterly. Help is one thing. Fraud is another. Forging my name on legal contracts is a crime. A heavy silence fell over the room. Uncle Rick cleared his throat. "Is that true, Lily? Did you sign Emily's name?" Lily's voice cracked. We didn't think she'd mind. She always pays. She has the money. We were under so much pressure." I slammed the binder shut. "You didn't think I'd mind? You tried to bury me in debt while calling me a freeloader. And when I stopped you, you told everyone I ruined your wedding." For the first time, my parents spoke. My mom's voice was small. "Emily, you could have just helped them finish paying. It was one day. Family sacrifices." I turned to her, my anger boiling. "I already sacrificed. I drained my savings to cover half their wedding. And they repaid me by forging my name. If you can look at this binder and still blame me, then maybe you're part of the problem too." My dad shifted uncomfortably but didn't argue. Across the table, Lily's eyes filled with tears. You're really going to hold this over us? You're going to destroy our marriage before it even starts? No, I said coldly. You did that yourselves. The room was tense. Some relatives stared at me with shock. Others looked away, ashamed. Finally, Aunt Sarah spoke. Emily, do you plan to press charges? The question hung in the air like a storm cloud. Everyone waited. I looked around the table at the faces of people who had doubted me, judged me, and believed Lily's lies. Then I looked back at my sister, trembling beside her husband. I haven't decided yet, I said slowly. But I'll tell you this, if anyone calls me selfish again, if anyone dares to accuse me of not helping, I'll walk straight into the police station with this binder. And I won't look back. The silence was so deep I could hear the clock ticking in the hallway. Dinner was awkward after that. Plates of pot roast were passed around, but no one had much of an appetite. People whispered in corners. Lily left early, her face blotchy from crying. Mark stormed out behind her, slamming the door. As I gathered my binder and slipped it back into my bag, my Aunt Carol caught my arm. Her voice was low, almost apologetic. Emily, I didn't know. I thought you were just being difficult. I'm sorry. I nodded. Now you do know. Next time, ask for proof before you take sides. I walked out of that house with my head held high, the cool night air filling my lungs. For the first time in weeks, I felt light. But deep down, I knew this fight wasn't over. People like Lily and Mark don't stop when they're caught. They find new angles, new lies, new ways to spin the story. And I had to be ready. If your own sister forged her signature for thousands of dollars, would you forgive her and move on, or would you press charges and take her to court? What would you do? Comment below, and subscribe so you don't miss any revenge stories on this channel. The night of Aunt Carol's dinner, I barely slept. I kept replaying every moment in my head, the silence when I dropped the binder on the table, the shock on my relatives' faces, the tears in Lily's eyes. For once, the truth was out. Everyone had seen it. No one could deny it anymore. But even as I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, a question gnawed at me. Was it enough? Should I press charges? Should I drag my own sister into court and let a judge read out the words forgery and fraud while my family sat in the back row? Part of me wanted to. Part of me wanted them to feel the full weight of what they had done. But another part of me was just tired. Tired of carrying this family on my back. Tired of being the responsible one who pays the bills, fixes the problems, and gets stabbed in the back anyway. I didn't want revenge that kept me tied to them. I wanted freedom. The next morning, I drove to my bank. The woman at the desk wore glasses that slid down her nose, and she tapped on her keyboard as I explained everything. I need fraud alerts on my account, I told her. I need new cards, new passwords, and a note that no one else can ever be added without me standing here in person. She nodded. That's smart. We'll also flag your sister's name in case anything else pops up connected to your account. I signed forms, updated my contact details, and walked out feeling lighter. My sister had taken my trust. But she would never touch my finances again. 2 months passed. I threw myself into work, picking up extra hours, building my savings back up dollar by dollar. Every week, I added a little more to the freedom fund I kept in a separate account. At night, I looked at apartment listings online. Studios, one-bedrooms, little places with balconies or hardwood floors. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about what my family wanted. I was thinking about what I wanted. One Saturday, I walked into a small apartment with sunlight pouring through the windows. The walls were plain white, the floor was scuffed, and the kitchen was tiny. But it was mine. I signed the lease that same day. Moving in felt like peeling off an old, heavy coat. I painted one wall teal, just because I liked the color. No one told me it was too bright or too much. I bought mismatched dishes at a thrift store, and every time I set them on the table, I smiled. I cooked pasta with garlic bread, and the smell filled the space. It didn't matter that I was eating alone. For the first time in my life, I wasn't eating resentment along with my food. I was free. But freedom doesn't mean family disappears. One evening, my phone buzzed with a text from Lily. "We need to talk. Can we meet?" I stared at the screen for a long time. My thumb hovered over the keyboard, but I didn't reply. The next day, she called. I let it ring. Then my mom called. Then my dad. Then Aunt Carol. Finally, I answered. It was my mom. Her voice was soft, almost pleading. "Emily, honey, your sister feels terrible. She knows she made mistakes. She wants to make it right." I clenched my jaw. She forged my signature, Mom. She lied to the whole family. She drained my savings. Do you understand how serious that is? "She's your sister," my mom whispered. "Family forgives." I almost laughed. Family also doesn't treat each other like ATMs. I hung up. Weeks later, the news reached me another way. Through my cousin, I learned that Lily and Mark had tried to buy a house. But when the bank pulled their records, the fraud alert popped up. The loan officer flagged it, and the deal fell apart. When I heard that, I didn't cheer. I didn't dance around my apartment. I just sat quietly, sipping my tea, and felt something like peace. They were finally facing consequences, not because I yelled, not because I chased them, but because the truth has a way of catching up. A year passed. It was Thanksgiving again, but this time, I wasn't sitting at my parents' long table, waiting for insults to fall between bites of turkey. I was in my own apartment, with teal walls and mismatched dishes, pulling a golden brown chicken out of my oven. I set the table for three, me, my friend Drew, and my cousin Sarah, the only relative who had believed me from the start. We laughed. We ate. We shared stories. At one point, Sarah raised her glass. To Emily. For showing us all what boundaries look like. We clinked glasses, and my eyes stung with tears. Later that night, as I washed dishes, my phone buzzed again. It was Lily. Another message. "I miss you. Can we talk?" Family is family. I stared at the words. Part of me wanted to reply. To ask her why. To demand an apology that meant something. But another part of me knew the truth. Some doors, once closed, should stay closed. I set my phone face down on the counter and looked around my apartment. The teal wall glowed softly in the lamplight. The dishes clattered as I stacked them neatly. My bank account was stable, my rent was paid, and no one was using my name without permission. For the first time in my life, I had peace. And yet, sometimes late at night, I still ask myself the same question. Should I forgive her one day? Should I let her back into my life on my terms? Or should I keep the doors shut forever and protect the peace I worked so hard to build? I don't know the answer yet. But I do know this: I will never again let anyone, even my own family, steal from me, use me, or call me a freeloader while I carry their weight. Because I finally understand what boundaries mean. And I won't let them go. What would you do if you were me? Would you forgive your sister someday, or would you stay no contact forever? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe if you want more true-to-life revenge stories like this.